Hey, class, you thought you'd get rid of me on this Friday, but I'm out in Troy enjoying myself, and you're in class. But I wanted to share with you a couple of things. Lighting is what I wanted you to go over today. And what better way to learn lighting than Pixar? So, we're going to look at some Pixar videos. I'm going to stop it, talk to you about it, and at any point, my sub can stop it and continue the discussion about what is a great field to be in, and that is the field of lighting. Lighting is important in all aspects of film and media production, and you could end up being a lighting director, an LD, or a number of different things where you would be either positioning the lights or deciding where they go or just being creative with them. So let's take a look at Khan Academy's Pixar's lighting overview. And let's look at this one first.
My name is Charu Clark, and I'm a lighter at Pixar. I wanted to tell you about some of the lighting techniques we use in our films. But first, we should clarify something that confuses a lot of people, including my parents. Computer animated films use lights and lighters just like any other film. In a live action set like this one, everything you see is illuminated by some kind of light source. If there's no light, you don't see anything. It's exactly the same in our films. The difference is that our lives are virtual digital lives, just like the characters and the virtual camera. This means that we do get complete control over the light, which is super cool because we use light to evoke very specific mood and story points in every single shot in the movie. One critical aspect of lighting in our films is choosing the light intensity and size. A larger light will create a softer, more diffuse image, softer shadows, whereas a harsher, more focused light source can create more tension in a shot. Another very critical aspect of light is its color, which is measured in temperature. A cooler, bluer light can create a cold feeling, whereas a warm, soft, more orange light can create a friendlier, open atmosphere. Another technique is the directionality of light, where you put the light in the scene. A front-lit character can appear more open and approachable. A character who's backlit can appear dark and dangerous. A bottom-lit character can appear spooky. If they're top-lit, they can feel like they're being interrogated. We use all of these lighting techniques to heighten both the look and the emotional aspect of a shot. Here, for example, are some shots from Incredibles 2. You'll notice we use two very different lighting setups. In the first instance, Violet approaches Tony and realizes he has forgotten about their date and barely remembers her. Now, this is a very common scene. A long, sterile hallway with a lineup of lockers. The light sources are blue overhead fluorescent lights. That makes the hallway feel like a sterile, almost hospital like environment and makes the audience feel unsettled and uncomfortable, similar to what Violet is feeling. Now, contrast this with later in the film, where Violet and Tony interact in a stairwell at school. It's a happier moment, and the two of them make a new connection. The main light source is a warm and soft outdoor sun filtering in through the trees. The lighting feels friendly, in keeping with the emotional state of the character. That's the emotional story point, and we want to feel it in every aspect, including the lighting.
Okay, so what we learned there from Pixar is the color of light means something. Like if it's bluish, it has a cold feel. If it's warm, like the one hitting me right now, it's more of a friendly feeling. It's more of an incandescent, like inside your house. Um, so that's some of the things she talked about. She also talked about the intensity of the lighting, how strong it is. Sunlight, remember, is very intense and strong and creates harsh shadows, where soft lighting that's created from things like the moon and indoor lighting that's really soft creates soft shadows and creates a whole different mood. So remember that color creates mood, and also the intensity of the light creates mood. And light is all you have to make a picture. Without light, there's nothing. So that's one part of lighting. Now we're going to talk about light quality, the quality of light, the softness or the harshness of the light. A little bit more here. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, got a little boo-boo. I'm not going to give with my credit card. I'm going to do this.
Photography for lighting here.
Let's start over. Here we go. And go.
Hi, my name is Kim White, and I'm a director of photography for lighting here at Pixar, or DP for short. The main job of a DP is to direct the lighting on a movie. I'll be your host for this lesson on the art of lighting. We'll explore how lighting is done in both physical and virtual scenes. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a chance to set the lights for actual Pixar shots. But before we start, I should warn you that there are spoilers ahead for Toy Story 3, Coco, and The Incredibles 2, so you may want to watch those movies before starting this lesson. Okay, let's get started. In order to know how virtual lights work, it helps to understand how lights in our physical world behave. So let's start this lesson by learning about real lights using a simple real-world exercise. To do this exercise, you will use a basic scene, 2 white walls and a white floor with a white ball in the middle. You can construct this scene a couple of different ways. One way is to tape 2 pieces of white foam core along one edge to make your walls and sit them on a white piece of paper for the floor. For your light source, you can use anything, but a flashlight, desk light, or clip light would work well. The light source that you choose and where you place it will influence the kind of light that it provides. You could call this the quality of the light. There are 3 main aspects of light quality we'll cover in this lesson: intensity, color, and softness. Intensity is how bright it is. This depends on the power of the light. But we can also change the intensity by moving our light closer or further away from the subject. Another way to change the intensity is to put a piece of paper or cloth in front of the light. Softness is defined by how harsh the light is. You can see this in how soft the shadows are from the light and how the light falls away on the surface. This depends on the size of our light relative to the subject. For example, a small light like this will cast sharp shadows and fall away more quickly around the surface, while a larger light will cast softer shadows and fall off more gradually. There's also a trick filmmakers use to make a smaller light source act like a larger one. They bounce the light off of a bright surface, which turns the surface into a large light source. Notice the shadows are much softer because the light source is larger.
Many people will bounce light off of a ceiling that's white, and it'll diffuse it, make it soft, and make it come back down on the people. It's a nice way to use a really harsh light. Just bounce it off of a ceiling or a wall that's white, and it'll create this kind of effect.
Finally, let's talk about the color of a light source. To change the color of the light, we can put a filter in front of it, such as a piece of colored cloth, plastic, or paper like this. Another way to change the color is to bounce it off of a colored surface. For example, let's add 2 colored walls to our scene. Watch what happens to the light as it bounces off each wall. Observe the change in colors to the light and shadows. Notice how the ball is picking up some of the blue bounce light from the left wall, and the shadow of the ball is getting red light from the back wall.
This happens sometimes, class, when you're shooting where a window is nearby and you're inside and you got nice warm lighting from incandescent, and all of a sudden there's some light from an outside window that's blue. Will create this kind of a mixture of light colors. These are called Kelvin temperatures, by the way, just so you know.
As you can see, depending on how we use our light, we can change its qualities such as intensity, color, and softness. In this first exercise, you'll build this lighting box and observe the effects of the lighting, drawing what you see. However, it's important to know that the goal of this exercise is not about making beautiful, well-drawn images. It is about learning to observe light and shadow. Enjoy!
See how much fun lighting is? Let's see. I want to stop here for just a second. Now we're going to talk about light roles, ROLES, what each light does in a setup. We've talked about 3-point lighting, where you have a key light, a fill light, and a backlight, and what their roles are. But now we're going to talk about just a little bit other, little twist to it.
In the last exercise, you developed your sense of light and shadow quality by paying attention to intensity, softness, and color. Now, let's think about the various roles a light can play when lighting a scene. In photography and filmmaking, we define a light by how it is being used, and since those are common terms in those industries, it's useful to know them. To see the different ways lights are used, let's break down this shot and look at the lights one at a time. Key, fill, bounce, rim, and kick. First, let's turn off everything except this light. This is the key light, and it's the main shaping light in the scene. By shaping, we mean that it helps things look dimensional. Let's return to our light box and try this out. I'm going to swap out my ball with an orange for this exercise, and here's my light in a typical key light position. Now let's return to our scene and turn on another light, the fill light. Here's what the scene looks like with only the fill light. This light adds light into the shadows and reduces contrast. One example of a fill light is a light that we get from the sky. It's usually a softer light and so doesn't have strong shaping and shadows the way a key light does. Let's return to our light box again and try this out. Here's what it looks like if I add a fill light to the scene. And here is just the fill light by itself. Now let's return to our virtual example and turn on a new light, the bounce light. This light bounces off of surfaces and gets cast back into the scene. This happens naturally, like when light bounces off of a wall, a table, the floor, or even a shirt. Since light automatically bounces around a scene, we sometimes want to exaggerate it or simply add extra light to the subject. The way to do this is by bouncing the light off a white card that is off camera, like this. Another light that we sometimes use is called a rim light. Rim lights are used to help carve something out from the background by outlining it with a rim of light. This is done by pointing the light into the camera from behind the subject. To create a rim light on the orange, I'll place my light over here, like this. Finally, we can also create what's called a kick light. Here is our scene with a kick light only. Like the rim light, the kick light can be used to help separate the subject from the background. This light, however, is brought around a little more to the side of the character, and rather than being an outline, gives extra shaping to the subject. To create a kick light on the orange, I'll move my light over to the side, like this. Sometimes, but not always, a kick light is coming from something in the set, such as a window or the sun behind the subject. Okay, those are the main roles that we're going to cover in this lesson. Let's see all these lights turned on together: key, fill, bounce, rim, and kick. In the next exercise, you'll have a chance to explore these basic ideas with something that we ask many people at Pixar to try: lighting in orange. Good luck!
I won't have you light an orange. But in our realm, not in Pixar's realm, which is the virtual realm, it's key light, fill light, and backlight is usually what we do. We do use kickers on the side and those kind of things, but normally we use a key, a fill, and a backlight. Okay, excellent. If the sub wants to stop this tape at this point and just let them discuss among themselves and you help them along, you can do that, and then we'll carry on. Okay, now we're going to talk about virtual lights, the lights inside of a computer, and you have virtual lights in a lot of the software, like Photoshop and After Effects, and I don't know if Premiere has it, but you can use virtual lights to do things on your text and on your images. So let's take a look at virtual lights.
Now that you've gotten a feel for lighting in the real world, it's time to get your hands on some virtual lights. In the next exercise, we have a lighting tool which will allow you to experiment with lighting in orange in a virtual environment. You'll be able to change the position, intensity, size, and color of a virtual light. The first two sliders allow you to adjust the horizontal and vertical position of the light, like this. The next slider allows you to adjust the intensity of the light. Below that, we have light size. Notice the effect it has on the lit areas as well as the shadow. As we increase the size of the light, the edges of the shadow blur and the light softens on the surfaces. Finally, we can adjust the color of the light from deep red to deep blue. If you don't want any color, simply set this to white. In this next exercise, you can experiment with these different parameters in order to answer a few challenge questions we have for you. Have fun!
Okay, virtual lights. Let's pause this. Virtual lights allow you to change a lot of things with just sliding. But what she was doing was actually in the physical world would be you moving the light up and down, moving it away. If you ever see a commercial being done where they want to soften the light, they'll have a big, huge, it could be 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide, and it's a big soft thing that the sun goes through to soften the light. Or in the studio, you pour the light through it and it just softens it. The bigger the light surface, the softer. And for shooting cars and things, they might have a huge one that they spill light through, so it's really soft and it kind of wraps around the car and kind of looks so cool. That's how they get really soft light. We're not going to light a virtual orange. We're going to look at character lighting, and this is going to be really helpful to you when you do lighting on your own for a project or something that we're going to be doing in the upcoming time. Because of the lights that we have in the school, you can use these and take these home and do these kind of lighting things. You can even do these with lights that you have in the house. So let's look at character lighting next.
Now let's talk about one of the most important things that we do in lighting at Pixar, lighting characters. Oftentimes, character lighting is used not just to light the character and make them look good, but to say something about them or their situation in the story. That's what this video is all about. For example, in this moment in Toy Story 3, Buzz is lit with only a rim light at the beginning of the shot, even though Jessie has a key light on her. Then, he steps into the key light at the end of the shot. This was done to make his reveal as dramatic and threatening as possible. And in this example, the monkey is underlit. The key light is coming from below him so that he looks scary and threatening. Compare this to the scene where the light is bouncing off the floor from the window, lighting the characters from below. In this case, even though the light is coming from underneath them, it is kept soft and is balanced out with the other lights in the scene so that instead of feeling scary, the lighting feels sad. And in this example, Joy is the light source, and her warm light shining back onto sadness helps draw them together in the shot. We can see how close Joy is to sadness, and her light draws them together and underscores the intimacy between them in this moment. To better understand how this happens, I brought Danielle and Eric to tell us how they use lighting to bring characters to life here at Pixar.
I'm Danielle Feinberg, and I'm a director of photography for lighting.
My name is Eric Smet, and I was the director of photography for lighting on The Incredibles 2.
So one of the things we can do in character lighting is to really sell sort of the emotion of a character or the emotion of a moment in interesting ways. And so there's this really fun moment in Coco where it's really the sort of crux of the whole story shifts. And it's up until this point, we've thought that Ernesto de la Cruz is this very famous Mexican musician, and he's Miguel's hero and this wonderful guy. And they walk in together, and Miguel is having this evening with de la Cruz, his hero, and there's a pool nearby. And so he's getting this nice, soft sort of green light along with some candlelight, and the general light in the room is sort of purple. And it's all sort of softly lit, and they look appealing. And then as the scene goes on, we reveal that de la Cruz is actually this totally evil guy. And so by the end of the scene, de la Cruz has walked over near the pool. And so instead of this soft sort of green light, he now has this underlit, harsh green light. And it's sort of like if you're telling a ghost story and you underlight yourself with the light. And so that was the way we used the lighting to sort of signify this shift. And we had this guy who is this great guy, and now he's actually like completely evil and is sending Miguel off to his death. And so we get them all underlit by that green light.
And there's this wonderful moment in the scene of Helen checks in, where she calls him to check in, and it's just after this raccoon fight had happened. And so he's a little perplexed. He realizes Jack has these superpowers, and Bob, things are going a little rocky for him. Not only is he not in the spotlight, not being the superhero that he wants to be, he's realizing it's actually harder to be, the stay-at-home dad, the parent, the single parent on his own than he thought it would be. And so we light him in a way where he's got a little bit deeper shadow in his eye. He's a little bit standoffish with her on the phone. He's not feeling quite engaged. And so she reveals to him that she had the best day of her life, and she had this moment in the spotlight and saved this train. And so he turns on the TV. And so we continue that, the sense of that in the cinematography, with the light on his face, creating even deeper shadow in his eye, even harsher angles on his face. And it's this world that he wishes he was in, and he's not, reflected on his face, just showing like how miserable he is. And so we're trying to create that tension in the scene, so that the audience can feel it along the way.
It turns out that Wally was incredibly difficult to light. Because if you think about it, he's rusty and he's metal, and he looks exactly like a lot of the things in the garbage dump behind him. And so finding ways to pull Wally out from that background was actually incredibly challenging. And one of the ways we do that is with those rim lights that you've heard about. And so getting this edge of lighting to kind of separate from the background is really critical. But we couldn't get any rim lights on Wally because he was this box with tight corners and it wouldn't catch any light. And so we had to figure out different ways, like banging up the corners to catch a little light. But it gave us this distinct shape of Wally. And so you could kind of pull him out from the trash.
So a scene in The Incredibles where the characters move from one strong lighting setup to another, one that comes to mind immediately is at the beginning of the movie when they're trying to stop the tunneler from crashing into City Hall. There's this whole fight sequence that takes place in this kind of stormy steel gray light with like sunbeams that sear through the clouds and capture certain areas of contrast. And so it's like, it feels very moody. It's very pushed. It's almost a little bit mysterious, and we use that to kind of caricature their action sequence as they chase this machine down the street. At some point, they realize they need to get inside and stop the thing from the inside out, and so we wanted a big change of feeling when we go inside of there. Maybe make it slightly more theatrical, slightly more stylized. And so as Helen swings across from one of these lampposts across the sky and then down into the tunneler machine, there's an abrupt change, and the light is extremely red from where the molten core of this engine is, and bright yellow from the back, and emerald green from the cooling tanks. And we really use that as a way to distinguish between these two spaces and have the audience feel something very different, both when we transition inside and then when we cut back and forth from Helen fighting the machine on the inside to Bob and the kids still trying to stop the machine on the outside.
As you can see, we put a lot of thought into how we light the characters in order to help support the story. In the next exercise, you are going to return to your lighting setup and swap out your orange with a toy character of your choosing and try out some of these ideas.
Not us. But what I wanted you to get out of that was the emotion and the mood that they're trying to create with the colors and with the intensity of the light. If you can bring that to your story, you can bring out your story better and make the viewer emotionally engaged more in what you're doing. So lighting is very, very important. So we're not going to do lighting a character. If you want to stop the tape again, stop this recording, sub and start a discussion about what we just saw, that would be great. Since it is Pixar, I hope it keeps your attention, everybody, because Pixar is known as one of the best animation houses, period, that ever existed. They've had some of the highest rated animated films ever, and Toy Story being probably the number one that they ever did. That comes to my mind. Well, we'll take a look at master lighting next.
Once we have a color script done for the entire film, we look closer at individual scenes to further develop how we are going to light them. If you recall from our storytelling lesson, a scene is comprised of many different shots, and each shot is defined by a new camera angle. As a first step, a few shots are chosen from each scene, and they are roughly painted to show what the lighting will look like. This allows us to see the direction of the light, its color, how much atmosphere there will be, and the value structure of the scene before we begin lighting on the computer. These paintings are called color keys, and they will be used by the lighting team as a reference while they are lighting the scene. Oftentimes, we'll choose a wide shot that shows as much of the environment as possible. This is so that we can get the broad strokes of the lighting design. Here is a wide shot from Cars 3 of the Thomasville track in the morning. Sometimes, we also paint a close-up shot of characters to help show what they will look like in this setup. For example, here's a close-up from the same scene in Cars 3. Notice how McQueen is in the shadow from the stadium. Having McQueen staged in the shadow and Cruz in the light at the end of the scene was an important story point that we wanted to capture in the color key. Cruz is celebrating because she's beat McQueen and she's in the light, but he realizes he'll never beat Storm, so we kept him in the shadows. Also, notice how warm the sunlight is on the ground, how cool the shadows are, and the dark value of the trees behind Cruz. These were all cues that we followed from the color key to help the sequence feel like early morning. Once the director is happy with the paintings and feels that they portray the look and feel of that moment in the movie, we're ready to start the actual lighting. Lighting happens in two main stages, master lighting and shot lighting. Master lighting is where we set up the lights for the entire scene. This involves choosing the correct position, direction, time of day, color, and intensity for the lights. Think of it as lighting in broad strokes, taking all the shots into consideration. Shot lighting is where we go in and adjust the lighting for each individual shot. We'll talk about that more in the next video. In this video, we're going to focus on master lighting. Let's bring in a few of our artists to help us out.
Choosing the right moments for color keys is, again, more of a practical problem as well as an emotional color-based idea. You might show like a wide shot to show the world looks like this at this point. Where you are, it's just the quality, the color of the thing. So often you might start with an establishing shot. You're trying to sort of seduce them into saying, that's what I want it to look like, and believe it can be done that way. And so when you finally get to lighting, they're totally on board with that direction.
It's important to have a picture. Otherwise, we can all say words. We can all say, a green glass holding a cup of water, and every one of us is going to be correct in whatever image is in our head and entirely different from each other, right? And so it's important to have some sort of like rough, grounded reference that we can all point at, understand what we're doing, and go off in a direction, and then allow it to evolve from there.
I'm Keith Cormier. I'm a lighting technical director.
My name is Jonathan Pitko, and I'm a lighting technical director here at Pixar. When I get the color keys, what I'm looking for is the overall mood and tone of what's in the scene, and if there's any sort of big story elements that we have to convey through the composition of light. So in this color key, you can see that we're coming into the arrival's departure area, and this is a nice example of where we're using color and light to create this friendly, inviting atmosphere. Everyone's happy and coming into this place, so we're using atmosphere in the background, which plays a huge part in the Land of the Dead, to create this nice colorful blue atmosphere interspersed with different pockets of warm light to always sort of show that there's something going on just around the other corner. And then in the foreground, we have a lot of pin lights of all different colors. We have street lamps lighting up. We have these big fire pits everywhere that are just, everything is subtly contributing to bring up the level of illumination so that it feels lit, it feels colorful, and it gives a nice sense of warmth and inviting the characters in.
For this color key, for family dinner, the DP had indicated that the center of attention was this dinner table in the middle of the room, and a lot of the room would fall away into darkness. And generally, when I get a color key, I've taken a look at what the main light is, what's the heavy hitter in the scene. And in this particular sequence, the main light is the light hanging over the table. And naturally, there's going to be some bounce light coming off of the table. In this case, the table was white, and that way we got a little bit more bounce on all the characters. We tried to be true and authentic to the lighting scenario that was there. So the heights of the characters would make them brighter or dimmer because they were closer or further away from the light. And it ended up working amazingly well that it happens to be kind of a emotional moment in the movie where the family's arguing a little bit, and Bob ends up having a little bit of a heated moment, and he leans forward in his chair and he gets even closer to the light, and his face kind of blows out a little bit, and that really added to the emotional impact of the scene. And I knew it was really working because I'd get done with the sequence and my heart would be kind of pounding a little bit, and I'd be a little tense. I'd have to take a breath.
In the following exercise, we'll provide you with a color key, and your job is to set up the master.
Okay, isn't it interesting that how much they put into these movies and how much they think about how the lighting in the real world should look in the virtual world? I'm fascinated by the idea that they spend so much time on these films, and the viewer never thinks like that. They might think it just goes together and they put a couple lights up, but it's really thought out very, very thoroughly. Okay, now we'll go into shot lighting. That'll be our last thing on this. So thanks for listening to everything. We'll go over this and then we'll recap at the end. Thank you.
Once master lighting is complete, we then begin shot lighting. In shot lighting, we are adjusting the lights to support the individual shot. One of the goals of shot lighting is to direct the viewer's attention, to get them to look where we want them to. Oftentimes, a shot will have a lot going on that could grab the audience's attention. Here's an example of a very busy shot from Cars 3, first with master lighting, and here it is with final shot lighting. In shot lighting, we added more light to the tops of the cars from the track lights. This helped to give the cars more contrast, and it emphasized the fact that the cars are being lit by the lights on the track. The additional contrast makes the shot more dramatic. We also added more light to the dirt where the cars are driving and darkened the ground close to camera. This gave the shot more depth and helped the audience look where we wanted them to. As the cars swing around to the other side of the frame, in shot lighting, we continue to keep that strong top light, which helps to carve him out from the background. In shot lighting, we artificially darkened the foreground car as the camera passes it. This helps keep the focus on McQueen, even though we can't see him on the other side. Losing the audience's attention, even for a split second, can make the shot less clear. Finally, when McQueen comes back into view, we shot lit him so that he was brighter on the top and darker on the side to help him feel dimensional. We also moved his key light so that he would have as much shaping as possible. By keeping the green car on the left a little darker, we make sure that the audience's attention stays fixed on McQueen. Another goal.
So class, how do you bring attention to what you want in the shot if it's very busy, or even if it isn't busy? By the brightest thing on the shot. Notice right now I'm kind of like in limbo. I'm the brightest thing, so your attention should come to me. Okay.
Of shot lighting is to make shots work in context, meaning that one shot cuts smoothly to the next. As an example, here are 2 consecutive shots from Cars 3. In this first shot, we introduce Miss Fritter, the school bus. She is an over-the-top character, and we wanted to reveal her theatrically with lighting. However, in the master lighting, she was getting enough light that she could be seen standing behind Cruz and McQueen. So in shot lighting, we darkened her and then animated on a spotlight as a way to dramatically introduce her. In the master lighting of the second shot, you can see that the spotlight existed, but it was moving around. By locking down the spotlight onto the characters in shot lighting, we not only create that theatrical moment, we also improve continuity. A third goal of shot lighting is to make characters look appealing from the camera angle of the shot. In this example from Toy Story 3, Lotso is meant to look mean and even a little evil. In master lighting, there is a red light that is coming from the left side of the screen, but it isn't doing much on Lotso. So we added a new light onto him from that direction to emphasize the red and also give him more shaping on his face. We also added more red light to the bug character and Ken, who are behind Lotso. This serves to not only give them more shape, but to also support the idea of the red light in the background. Since the light is red, it reinforces the idea that they are Lotso's henchmen. For more examples of shot lighting, let's hear from two of our shot lighters.
My name is Li-Hun Li. I'm a lighting artist at Pixar. We usually start with the DP for initial review. So we'll be on the same page on what's the most important elements in the shot. The DP may ask for some separation between character and background. Then we need to knock the background out by lower the contrast and bring more contrast to the foreground. Sometimes there might be background elements that's drawing unwanted attention. We want to tone that down.
One of the things that I had in Family Dinner was in the far background, you see the kitchenette, which has a bunch of chrome things in it, and they were a little bit shiny. They weren't specific to the story. They were just sort of atmosphere. And you would see this kind of flashy stuff in the back behind him. And it's like, well, that's visually not quite working. It's close, but not quite. And so I dimmed them down a little bit so it wasn't so distracting. And we kind of sweeten things as we refine and polish.
Here's a shot that is very typical shot lighting scenario. This is an over-shoulder character conversation. When I just got this shot, starting from master lighting, everything worked out pretty well, except that we want to have more emphasis on the main character that's facing the camera, and we want to push the background further so we don't pay much attention to. I added the key light and tweaked the intensity to give this main character a more interesting and appealing look and add more atmosphere to the background so there's less contrast. Also, this shot will require some detail work. For example, there is this metal badge on the main character's hat, and we want to bring out that metallic quality. I added a special kick light to the badge only to bring out the speck from the metal. And because of the brim of the hat is black versus a black hair, we want to create some separation. I also added a rim light to have some kick on the edge of the brim of the hat, so it separates from the dark hair.
Now that you have a sense of how shot lighting works, it's your turn to try it out. Let's return to the previous exercise that you set up the master lighting in.
Okay, it's so interesting to me that they use all these little things, the little elements in the shot that you would never notice, like something had a little glare on it or something didn't have enough glare on it, and they actually go through and they make sure that that shot is perfect. Now, this is in the virtual world. In the real world, you sometimes won't be able to get the perfection that they find in the virtual. So you do the best you can with what you have. There's a lot of things you can do, but there's some things you can't do, like Pixar does. Lastly, I'd like to recommend Pixar in a Box. This is on the internet. You can get to it yourself. What I like about it is that you can actually do these exercises yourself and play around with them. You can go into the virtual lights, for instance, and you can play around with the virtual lights and do some really cool stuff. There's some activities that you can do. So if you're interested in lighting, tell me that you're interested in lighting. So we'll give you some more things that'll give you more of a challenge in that area. And you can learn more about lighting, and maybe I can team you up with somebody who's in lighting for a living. Okay, and I hope you have a great day. And today is Friday. I'm not here. That's why I'm doing this video. And I want to make sure that you do your gift project. That's 200 points. Make sure it's delivered to me tonight by midnight. I want to play them on Monday. And if we're present in school, which we might be, we'll play them on the big screen. If not, we'll play them on this screen, your screens. Have a great day, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Sub, for helping out my class today. I really appreciate it. Bye, guys.